What's up, guys? It's Mike back with another video. Today we're taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. This is a follow-up to our first impressions and initial hands-on video from just a couple days ago. Today we're going to do 24 tips and tricks, and yes, I've made a pretty exhaustive list of things that you may want to know how to do when you get this phone home and out of the box. Alright, so first we're going to look at airplane mode. There are three ways with the Galaxy Note 4 to enable or disable airplane mode. The first is just by holding the power button here on the side. And when you do that, you get this list of options. Power off, there's airplane mode, restart emergency mode, and then some sound profile settings. Tap the second option, and it'll tell you that you're turning off all your cellular data features, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Go ahead and turn it on, and this is the mode that you would go into when you get on the plane and they say you need to turn off all your electronic devices. Turning it on, you can follow the same steps. Whoops. When you safely land, hold the power button again, turn airplane mode off. Just a few seconds later, all your data connections will come back. Next on our list is how to create quick notes with your S Pen from the lock screen. And being as I'm someone who doesn't use the S Pen often, this one actually proved somewhat useful. So when you have the S Pen out, hold the button on the side and tap twice on the lock screen without having to unlock. I don't know why it turns off. Without having to unlock or get into the phone, you can make your notes. So, hello. So the next thing we'll cover is how to launch Google Now. I'm a big fan, I use it often, and to get into Google Now from the home screen, you just press and hold the home button, and it will launch Google Now. Next thing up is how to configure the fingerprint reader found here in the home button to read your fingerprints. So I already have it set up, but we'll go through the setup instructions so you can see where to find that. Go ahead and go to Settings, and then continue scrolling down until you see Finger Scanner. It should be here at the top in your quick settings, but you can continue scrolling down until you get to it here at the bottom of Personalization. So you want to go into Finger Scanner, and the Galaxy Note 4 can register 3 different fingerprints. So we'll hit the plus button, and it says swipe your finger downwards over the home key 10 times. So we'll do this as my index finger on my right hand, and we'll swipe down. And if you do it wrong, it'll give you a message. So it says swipe over the center. So swipe, swipe. So you do it a series of times, and eventually you get all the way through all 10. And it says your fingerprint has been registered. You can do it swiping in a different direction if you so wish. If you choose to do that, you tap register, and then you can swipe up with the same finger. So there we go, that time it went quite a bit easier. That's it. So the next thing we'll show off is how to set up or how to activate mobile hotspot. Now this may be a feature that's specific to your carrier, and you may activate it differently depending on the phone, or I'm sorry, depending on the carrier. Go to Settings, and then it may be found here in the quick settings. On this particular device, it isn't. But you can definitely find it here under Network Connections. It'll say tethering a mobile hotspot. So if there's not a specific app for it, this is where you can go. It takes you to the exact same place. So next thing we'll cover is how to insert or remove a microSD card. The Note 4 comes with 32 gigs of internal storage. If you find that that's not enough, you can always add more storage. So find the indentation here on the back cover and get your finger in to remove the back plate. And this slot here is where your micro SD card goes. You want to make sure that when you put it in, you go contacts down, the gold contacts face downwards. I don't have one handy to show, but this is the slot. You put it in from the top and slide towards the bottom. While we're at it, we'll just go ahead and point out the SIM card, which is the next on the list. This is your SIM card tray. You can insert and remove it, but you do need to take the battery out to get access to it. It comes out this way, So the easiest thing to do if you have one in that you're trying to remove is just sort of get here on the side and push outwards. And then the inverse is true when you're trying to put a different SIM card back in. You want to go gold contacts down and then push it in from this direction. So we'll go ahead and put the back cover rack on. Just go ahead and be thorough when you go around. Use a thumb to press the tabs back in. You'll hear it click as you go. So one of the first things that I do anytime I use a Samsung device is I turn off these annoying touch response sounds. So anytime you touch the screen, whether it be to open an app, or you make a press on the keyboard, when you drag down from the notification bar, Samsung's TouchWiz interface has these annoying little droplet sounds. I can't stand them, so it's one of the first things I turn off. To do that, go into the settings mode and find a label for sound. And then in this, you'll want to scroll down and you'll see this setting for touch sounds. Play sound when making a screen selection. I'll turn it on so you can hear what I'm talking about. That sound would likely get me committed if I listened to it for too long. So hit the checkbox next to touch sound. I also don't like haptic feedback, so it's that small vibration that you feel, sort of like touch sounds when you press anywhere on the display. Here's where you can toggle that off as well. So one other nice customizable feature that you can change is the vibration intensity. So whether it be a text message alert, an incoming phone call, or even if you do leave that haptic feedback enabled so that when you press keys, you get that vibration response feedback, you can adjust that intensity. So go ahead and go into settings, and then you'll go to sound. And the third option down here is vibration intensity. When you go in here, you have 3 different settings levels. So when you get an incoming call, the vibration will be the strongest. I have this set for notifications to be the same, and then haptic feedback you can see is a lot less because you're interacting with the device, so it's not so much of a notification. But if you drag this slider, you can change it to different amounts. So that's how you can adjust that if you're not feeling the phone ringing in your pocket, for example. So the next thing that we'll look at is how to change the font size. You have a 5.7-inch quad HD display here. If you'd like the fonts to be bigger, you definitely have the room to work with. So to do that, we'll go back into settings. And this time we'll go to display. And then the second option from the top is font. From here you can choose the style and the size. So if you go into style, it'll load all the selected pre-installed fonts, and you can sort of look through this list. You can also download more and change what the text on your screen looks like. And then for size, you choose the second option. I have mine set to small, but you can go huge, for example, and there's a look at what the huge font size looks like. When you return to the home screen, you'll see the default size, but when you go into apps, when you go into different parts of the system, you'll see the increased font size. And so if you have a hard time seeing, or if you're outdoors, or whatever the case may be, you can adjust that. So the next thing we'll look at is screen brightness. Indoors and outdoors, you may want to set the screen to different brightness levels, and you may also go about doing this to conserve battery. Indoors, you don't need as much brightness. Outdoors, you may need more. So when you drag down from the notification bar, your brightness slider is right here under your toggles. You can lower the brightness if you're indoors and you don't need it to be as bright. If you go outside and you want it to be really bright, you can crank it all the way up. There is an auto brightness mode, that's this toggle over here, that the phone will use its ambient light sensor to determine how bright your surroundings are and adjust the display accordingly. I find that works reasonably well, but you can still go in and manually override that. When you start dragging the slider, it'll turn the setting to off, and so the auto brightness sensor won't take over. So for those of you in the colder climates where you might be wearing gloves about this time of year, there's a setting in the Note 4 to increase the touch sensitivity of the display. So we'll go back to settings, where we find ourselves quite often, and then we'll go back to display. And then at the very bottom, there's this increased touch sensitivity option. And it says use your device while wearing gloves by increasing the touch sensitivity of the screen. If you set this mode to on, it won't affect your regular usage with just your fingers the rest of the time, but it will make it so that the screen will recognize touches that aren't capacitive, that aren't conductive, in other words, coming from your finger. One thing that I really like about all of Samsung's Galaxy Note series from the last a couple generations, as well as the S series, is that on the top of the phone, they include an IR blaster. On the Note 4, it's found here in the upper right, and this lets you use the phone as a remote control for any of your home audio and video components. So to set that up, you'll go to Apps, and you'll scroll over until you see Smart Remote, and go ahead and select that. Now we're not going to walk through the comprehensive process of configuring this for my specific gear. I'll do that later, but in the Smart Remote app, you'll go ahead and select your country. We're in the United States, and then as far as zip code here, it's asking this so that it can pull local programming and providers. We have Xfinity, so we'll choose that. We don't want Peel to set up configurations. You can scroll through all these. This is what the remote looks like. And so when you get in here, it'll ask you to select your brand of TV. Go through the top brands list. If you have another brand of TV, you can come in here and view the full list that's supported by the phone. And once you go into the TV, it'll have you go through a simple process where you'll press the button, you'll point the phone at the TV, press the button, and if it responds, then it's found the correct IR code to transmit. You can do that for all your devices that you might have remotes sitting around the house for, so TV, DVD player, DVR. There's even a setting in there for the Apple TV. So if you have an Apple TV, you can configure that to control with the phone as well. So next on the list, one of the things that you might like to do with the Note 4, because it does have this massive display, is multitasking. And to access that, you will hold the back button down here, and sometimes it's a bit finicky, until this sidebar comes up. And this has a list of the apps that you can multitask with. And on the Note 4, you can have 5 of these open at the same time. So let's just use Contacts, and that puts it in its own dedicated window, which we can move around the screen. So we'll just kind of get it out of the way. You can also resize, by the way, larger and smaller. And then we will hold the back button again, bring back our tray, and let's say we want to open Facebook. So it'll pull Facebook up in another window. And then let's choose Internet. So now we have, at the same time, we have a browser, a social media application, our contacts, and we can jump back and forth between the priority of any of these at any time. This can take place, and we're just at the home screen for this, but this can take place, you can multitask while you have primary apps in the background. So if we go to messaging, for example, it'll sit there in the back, but this could be useful if you're having a conversation via text message with someone, and they say, what's the address for that place that we're meeting tonight? From within this text message, you could pull up Google, for example, never leaving the text message screen, and do a quick search, find your answer, and then go back to the text message. So to exit, bring the primary window open and press the back button. Next thing on our list is a little bit more personalization, dealing with the lock screen. So right out of the box, this is the lock screen display, or the lock screen wallpaper that you get, and there are these 2 shortcuts here. Once you're on the phone, come up here to Settings. We come here a lot, have you noticed? And you'll look for the lock screen settings menu. So here you can change, again, the security. I have the fingerprint sensor set up, and you can also choose whether you want the camera shortcut on or off. The action memo is what we showed earlier, where if you hold the button on the S Pen and you tap twice, it'll create this action memo. Lock automatically sets how long the lock intervention or interval is, and then the power key. So you can also come to wallpaper, and this will load all the Samsung default wallpapers. So if you want to choose this one, for example, you can choose what it applies to. Home screen, lock screen, or both. So we'll just choose lock screen for this one. We'll set as wallpaper this button that is a little bit difficult to see at the bottom. It'll do that, and then we can go check it. And there it is. If you opt not to use the finger scanner to get into the phone, you want to use a PIN number instead, or a password, for example, go ahead and go back to Settings, come to Lock Screen, and then the top option is your security mode. So when you tap here, let me just enter this because I already have that set up. These are the options for how you can set your lock screen security. Just a simple swipe with no authentication. You can draw a pattern, you can set up a PIN number, you can do a password, which is alphanumeric, letters and numbers. Here's fingerprint scanner, or you can just have none whatsoever, so that when the phone is off, you press the power button and you're immediately on your home screen. Another thing that's a specific feature to this phone, because it is so massive, that I wanted to cover is one-handed operation. So when I hold this phone, for example, in my hand, there's a lot of the screen that I can't reach with my thumb. I can't even get all the way side to side in a comfortable position. So Samsung has what they call one-handed mode, and to get to that, so we'll go to Settings, and we'll scroll down quite some ways this time to one-handed operation. And when you go into this sub-menu, you have a few different options for how you can configure this. You can do reduce screen size, which will, let's just turn it on here. It'll let you adjust the corners of the device so that your screen moves around, so that you can access different portions of the display. And this is just this gives you a quick example of how to set that up. I don't choose to use that. Then there's one-handed input, which I do use. And this specifically moves the dial pad in the phone application so that when you open it, you can reach the entire keypad with one hand. So this side, for example, would be for a left-hand user, gripping it as such. If you press the arrow here, it changes it to a right-hand bias for a right-hand user, and once again, you're able to access all the buttons. So the one-handed operation is definitely a welcome feature on a device of this size. Spend some time playing with that until you get it just right. So the next thing is do not disturb mode. After a certain time of night, if you don't want to hear notifications or for calls or text messages or social networks or email, you can schedule it to automatically disable the ringer and the volume after a certain time. So to do that, we go back to the settings menu. We go into blocking mode, and when you turn this on, it'll give you three different options for what you want to actually block: incoming calls, notifications, and the alarm. So this would be a good one to leave off. You don't want it to disable the alarm sound. And then here's where you set this time schedule. So you say after midnight, for example, until 6 a.m., I don't want to get notifications except for my alarm. Down here at the bottom, you have a little bit more customization for people that can bypass that. So for example, maybe you might add your spouse to this list if you wanted to receive calls or text message alerts after the time schedule that you don't want to receive those alerts from anyone else. So you can go through the contacts list and choose people that can get past this. So next is another feature specific to the Note series phones, and we're going back to the S Pen. And there are four options that when you pull the S Pen out from its sheath, its storage, that you can activate. So to do that, bring the S Pen down close to the display and click the button. And this will bring up this Air Command window, and these are your four options that you can do from practically anywhere in the system. So just hover over them to see each one. The first one is Action Memo, and this is very similar to the one in lock screen that we looked at earlier. So the next option on the Air Command, if you hover the S Pen over the display and you click, is Smart Select. Or maybe you're in the browser and you want it to highlight an entire paragraph. So you might hold the button and choose Smart Select, and then let's grab this entire paragraph. And there we have all the text from this one paragraph, and it's converted that into meta text, and here we have it all right here. So it also grabs that link, and then from here we can share this out through different social networks, different applications, email, whatever program we'd like. The third option on the S Pen is this image clip, and so anything that's on the screen you can take and grab, just draw an area around it, and it will extract that area that you can do different things with. So you could copy this, you could put this into a photo editor, you could add this as an attachment to an email, various different things with just highlighting, drawing an area around that content. And the last part of S Pen's Air Command is this screen write capability. So when you tap that, it immediately takes a screenshot of whatever's on your screen at the time and then brings you into this editor where you could draw onto the screen. So a use case for this that I can think of would be when it comes to maps. So let's say that I didn't get maps there. Let's say that you're planning dinner for some people, and you pull up Google Maps and you wanted to show a specific place on the map. Let's say, well, we don't live in a cemetery, so let's keep going. Let's say you live here on this Long Island Drive. You could grab the area, grab a screenshot of the entire area. There's a screenshot, and then you wanted to mark your house specifically. So you might say, I live here. And then with that, you can take and share. So you might be able to send this in a text message, you might post it on Facebook, you might email it directly. But it gives you just another way to interact with what's on your display so that you can share that with other people in a meaningful way. So one thing that Samsung is toting pretty heavily with this large device, with its big screen, is its battery life. And it's 1:30 in the afternoon right now as I'm recording this. I still have 25% battery from when I unplugged it yesterday. So I'll show you how to look at your battery first, but then we're going to talk about power savings mode. So you scroll down, I believe it's in the green section. Here it is. So system, tap on battery, and this will give you a look at your current battery status. This one, since it was charged last, is gone. Well, that's the equivalent of 27 hours and 12 minutes. If you choose the screen option, you can see how much of that time your screen was actually on. So for me, it's 2.5 hours. So this is pretty good battery life for a phone this size that drives as many pixels as this thing has. But you can get even more out of it by enabling power savings mode. And to get to that, just right under battery, you see power savings. There's a power savings mode standard, and then there's ultra power savings mode. We'll go into the first one. And when you turn this on, the first thing that it does is restrict background data. So this is going to make it so when your phone is in your pocket, for example, in standby, Android and the apps that you have installed aren't doing these background processes. You can also choose to restrict the performance, so the phone will act a little bit slower. You can go into specifics and configure this, limit the CPU performance, the screen brightness, and then GPS. That's another big battery drain. So you can turn that on and off. You can get really granular, and you can also turn on grayscale mode, which when you do that, oh, Will's calling. Let's decline that. So if you turn on grayscale mode, there are no colors in the screen. And now this reduces processor drain, processor usage, because it's not driving all the colors, but it also uses less screen time, or less screen resources, because it doesn't have to drive the color and all the pixels. So this is a good way to pull some extra time out of that battery. Maybe you're running low, it's going to be a while until you can get back, and so you turn on grayscale mode just to make it so you can last until you get back to a charger. Because I do everything with colors, I have a hard time finding where. Okay, here we go. Power savings mode. We'll go ahead and turn this off, and that returns everything back to regular performance. Ultra power savings mode is even more intense. It gives you a simplified home screen. It turns everything grayscale and does a whole lot. Your phone is not going to be as capable of doing as much because you're in ultra power savings mode. But the extra standby time that you can get out of it is pretty impressive. So right now we're at 25% battery. If we were to put on ultra power savings mode right now, it's estimating that with the power that we have left, we could go another basically 4.5 days in standby mode without having to recharge the battery any further than it already has. So pretty impressive. I haven't put this through actual use yet, but we'll play with that later. All right, so the next thing on our list is dealing with applications. So if you're like me, you get carried away, you download any app that even looks remotely useful. And you end up with a few hundred on your phone, and just in 24 hours I've gotten several already. But then there's going to come a time when you might want to remove some of those. There's two ways. You can come into the Play Store, and this works across all Android devices. And if you choose the hamburger menu, and then you choose My Apps, this will give you a list of all the apps that are currently installed. Let's just grab, let's pick one here to just uninstall Instagram. If we wanted to uninstall Instagram, we can go into its specific app page and tap uninstall, and it'll remove Android, or it'll move Instagram and all the updates from Android altogether. Next up is attaching photos or videos or other content from your phone to text messages. So when you go into your messages, you have, and let's say this is an ongoing thread, you have this paperclip for attachments. You can tap here and it'll show you the various different type of attachments that you can send. For photos, we'll go ahead and click image, and it'll immediately launch right into the gallery. We'll just choose camera. These are all the photos that I've taken with this phone, and your most recent ones are here at the top. So let's grab this one from the wedding, and now that one is selected from the wedding, we'll choose done, and it will downsize the image, add it to the text message, and then you can add some text. Hello. And then send it straight away. So next up is taking a screenshot. And on the Galaxy Note 4, it's the same as several previous generation Samsung devices. It's quite simply hold the power button here on the side and the home button at the same time. So we'll go ahead and do that, and you'll see it take a picture. There it goes. That'll save to your gallery. You can do whatever you want with it from there. One thing, I use my phone to take a lot of pictures, and so one thing that's important to me is backing them all up. Built into Android, you have the Google Plus app, and within Google Plus there's an automatic backup mode. So we'll go ahead and launch the app, and we'll come here, tap the settings button, and go into settings, and here at the top is auto backup. Automatically back up all your photos and videos to Google Photos. Backups are for your eyes only. So this isn't going to share these images with everybody else, but it is going to make it so they're stored off of your device in the cloud. I've purchased more Google Drive storage, so there's a space available here at the top. You can choose if you want it to save the full-size image, or if you want a standard size, which puts it at 240 or 2048 pixels width, which does give you unlimited free storage at that size. And then there's a handful more options. You can back up photos and videos. You can choose to do it while you're roaming or only when you're charging. You can back up everything that you've currently taken if you haven't done it already. You can buy more storage. So a ton of options here. This is absolutely one of the first things that you should check on though when you get your device started, to make sure that this is enabled. I've lost hundreds of pictures before by not having this set up. You don't want to be in that position. You don't want to experience that. And lastly for today, one more customizable option is how to change the wallpapers on the home screen. So earlier we did it for the lock screen, but to do it for the home screen, especially when you're flipping back and forth between them, just hold down on any blank space, and this will bring up several options that you can do for that home screen. We'll go ahead and choose wallpapers, and then it'll give us a selection that we saw with the lock screen before. We can go through all the Samsung standard wallpapers that they've included. Let's say like that one. And then we'll just use set as wallpaper button here at the bottom. At the top you can see it's set for home screen only. If you want to use a photo that you've taken, choose this first option from gallery, and that'll bring up the gallery, and same as before, you can go into your camera mode, choose something that you've taken. Let's say we want to use this one of these this table setting at the wedding. It'll pull that image in, and then it'll show you how it will be previewed, how it'll be laid out in both horizontal and vertical and horizontal mode. You can choose to use a different part of the image by dragging this section over, choose to resize it, however you want to go about it. We'll set the flame there in the middle, we'll choose save, and that'll set the wallpaper for the home screen. This doesn't affect the lock screen, but as you can see now when we come back here, we swipe, there's what it looks like. If we've left something out, if you have specific questions that we didn't cover here today, feel free to drop those in the comments. I'll get those answered. You can also catch me on Twitter. I'm @mbchp. So until the next video, that's it for today. Peace.